Perhaps you know that the now international no-kill movement started right here in San Francisco. In 1994, the SPCA, under the leadership of its president Richard Avanzino and the Department of Animal Care and Control, created to take over the role of city pound, entered into an adoption pact. The SPCA agreed to take all savable, treatable, and rehabilitatable animals from ACC and put them up for adoption at their facility. With this contract, San Francisco became a leader that the animal welfare nation looked up to, and that many shelters in the United States and throughout the world tried to emulate. Sadly, in 2010, many communities have surpassed San Francisco when it comes to saving homeless animals, and more are taking action to do so every day. However, those in power in our city have time after time refused to act, leaving it to overwhelmed and underfunded rescue groups to do the job that the shelter leaders have been hired to do.
Today, San Francisco's ACC boasts an 85% live release rate for the cats and dogs that pass through the city-run shelter. It should be noted, however, that this seemingly high percentage includes many that rescue organizations step in and save from death at the hands of ACC. The San Francisco SPCA boasts a 97% save rate for the animals it takes, some from Animal Care and Control, but many brought into the city from out-of-county shelters. Both of these organizations claim to be following no-kill protocols, yet every year, more than 600 of San Francisco's cats and dogs are dying unnecessarily in our shelters. These are the ones deemed unsavable by ACC and the SPCA, and for whom the rescue groups have no more room.
Give Me Shelter is the largest cat rescue group in San Francisco. Its volunteers are the first ones called when a cat is determined to be unadoptable by both ACC and the San Francisco SPCA. In most cases, the ones that ACC plans to kill are taken by Give Me Shelter and put up for adoption, sometimes going straight from a cage at ACC to a cage in Give Me Shelter's adoption center in Daly City or at one of their mobile adoption sites. In case after case, cats declared unadoptable by both ACC and the SPCA are adopted from Give Me Shelter, sometimes within 48 hours.
Among those declined as unadoptable by ACC and the SPCA are cats like Rusty. He was a 1-year-old stray who failed his behavior test for being too playful, biting and swatting. Many young cats exhibit this easily modified behavior when they are confined to small spaces and not given regular attention. Rusty, taken by Give Me Shelter after being slated to be killed at ACC, was soon placed into a loving home.
After spending their entire lives together in one home, 13-year-old Sprat and his brother were surrendered by their owner, who had developed allergies. The SPCA took his brother, but Sprat was declined by both ACC and the SPCA for weighing too much. Obesity in cats is an extremely manageable issue, yet without Give Me Shelter, Sprat would not be alive today. Imagine the outcry if humans were executed simply for being overweight, but apparently execution is acceptable if the victim is just a cat.
This is Les. He passed his behavior test but was declined by both ACC and the San Francisco SPCA for medical reasons. The medical issue in question was hair loss. Hair loss has many potential causes, including stress, flea allergies, a fungal infection called ringworm, or even overgrooming, which is associated with stress as well. Although all of these issues are easily managed, Les would have been killed if Give Me Shelter hadn't come to his rescue.
This cat, a stray brought to ACC, was described by the volunteers who visited her as shy and very sweet. Although she initially passed her medical and behavioral evaluations, she was subsequently deemed unadoptable by both ACC and the SPCA because she reportedly hissed, growled, and swatted when picked up and held in front of the cage of another cat. Cat reactivity is common in shelter environments, often brought on by stress. This lovable cat would be dead today if Give Me Shelter hadn't stepped in and taken her.
But when San Francisco's rescue groups have reached their maximum capacity, as they too often do, it is up to dedicated volunteers and other good Samaritans to save these animals from death at the hands of our city's shelter. One example is Tiger. He came to Animal Care and Control when his owner surrendered him for spraying. Tiger had never been altered, which was likely the cause of his misbehavior. Instead of neutering him, a standard surgical procedure, and putting him up for adoption, ACC decided that he should be killed. Rather than allowing that to happen, a volunteer at ACC, who had frequently visited him and knew how loving he was, took him home and found a permanent placement for him herself. Tiger has not sprayed a single time since being neutered and leaving ACC alive.
Monk was brought into ACC when his owners could no longer care for him due to an issue with their new landlord. ACC assessed him and found him unresponsive. However, volunteers who had visited him claimed that, although he was very scared and seemed to have a cold, they were able to pet and hold him. The San Francisco SPCA and ACC decided this was not enough to warrant saving his life. Monk was scheduled to be killed because of his age and because he was scared and stressed. Rather than allowing that to happen, an ACC volunteer adopted him. Today, Monk once again has a home and a happy life.
Brought to ACC because her owners were moving, Betty failed her behavior evaluation when staff claimed she was hard to handle. When the SPCA agreed and Give Me Shelter had no room for her, Betty was scheduled to be killed. However, an ACC volunteer once again stepped forward. She was able to take Betty to the vet and get her in and out of her carrier, usually one of the most difficult forms of handling, with no problem. Betty now enjoys life with her new family.
3 years ago, Vinny, a feral kitten, was brought to ACC by the woman who had trapped him in a parking lot. The staff there considered him so vicious that they were afraid to handle him. Luckily, in 2007, the SPCA still had a successful cat behavior program. They took him in, and with consistent handling and visits from trained volunteers, he quickly became the cat that you see now, one who, according to his adopter, hates to be ignored and sleeps on her pillow every night. Given the current methods of behavior evaluation in place at ACC, and with the SPCA's cat behavior department eliminated 2 years ago, ferals like Vicious Vinny have far fewer chances of socialization and successful adoption today.
Meet Marcy. Also born feral, she and her littermates were cared for in a foster home until they were old enough to be put up for adoption. A few weeks after she was brought back to ACC, Marcy developed ringworm, a common and treatable fungal infection. Because she and her littermate Teddy had shared a cage at the shelter, he was also at risk for infection. Rather than treating them and giving these kittens the opportunity to be adopted, ACC decided that they should be killed. Happily for the kittens, the ACC volunteer who had fostered Marcy and Teddy could not bear to let this happen. She brought them home and treated their ringworm. Today they are completely healthy and happy in their forever home.
Julius was picked up in a feral colony and surrendered to ACC, where he was put up for adoption. However, when the SPCA came to assess him, they declined him. He was then pulled from the adoption area at ACC and scheduled to be killed. Rather than allow that to happen, Julius was reclaimed by the person who had initially surrendered him. She doesn't have the space for another cat yet, but like many rescue volunteers, she elected to sacrifice her own comfort and finances rather than seeing a highly adoptable animal killed for no apparent reason.
Another group that is called by ACC on a regular basis is Rocket Dog Rescue, which, along with Grateful Dog Rescue, saves a large number of dogs from the city shelter. In fact, in the 2008-2009 fiscal year, both rescues adopted out more dogs taken from ACC than the SPCA did. The annual budgets for these rescues are a fraction of those of the city shelter and the privately funded San Francisco SPCA, yet they are the ones that continually and literally save animals from death. Here are just a few of the many dogs saved by these rescue groups.
Chloe was declined by ACC and the SPCA because she was so shy and shut down that they couldn't conduct a behavioral evaluation on her. Many animals enter shelters in various states of fear, often resulting in their freezing up. As you see, she is completely over that now, but many animals are condemned to die rather than being given an opportunity to adjust to their new environment. If Chloe and her buddy Guy hadn't been taken by Rocket Dog Rescue, they would have been killed. Guy, who has since been adopted by a Rocket Dog volunteer, was on the kill list simply because he had been at ACC too long and the SPCA had declined him.
Molly came to ACC as a stray. Made available for adoption, she eventually started to deteriorate, which is common for dogs when they are in the shelter too long. Yet, instead of trying to place her in a foster home or find ways to save her, she was made unavailable, a death sentence. At the time, the rescues were filled to capacity and Molly's outlook was grim. However, a Rocket Dog and ACC volunteer took her in to save her life. Molly is now awaiting adoption in her foster home.
Meet Luca. He came into ACC as an 8-month-old. He was declined by ACC and the SPCA because he was hyperactive, as most puppies are. Although great with kids and with no aggression issues, apparently being a young dog with energy is enough to be given a death sentence. If Rocket Dog Rescue had not arranged for a foster home with one of their volunteers, Luca would be dead today.
Smokey was rescued by Rocket Dog when he was found as a stray on the beach. Gus was also rescued by Rocket Dog. Having been surrendered to animal care and control by his family, all crying in the lobby because they had to give him up, Gus was declined by ACC and the SPCA because he was supposedly afraid to walk through doors and allegedly growled at an attendant. When he was saved by 2 Rocket Dog volunteers, he had no problem getting through the car door into his new family's car. Smokey and Gus would both be dead if Rocket Dog hadn't taken them in.
In May 2003, Lucy arrived at Animal Care and Control with her mother and uncle. They were surrendered when the previous owners had to move and couldn't take the dogs with them. All 3 were deemed aggressive and therefore unadoptable by ACC and the SPCA. However, Grateful Dog took them and found good homes for all 3. Today, Lucy is an official animal-assisted therapy dog, having passed her canine good citizen test. If not for Grateful Dog taking a chance on this aggressive mixed-breed puppy, Lucy would not have lived to bring so much joy to her guardian and the people she visits in her new working role.
These are only a few examples of the far too many cats and dogs scheduled for death every day in San Francisco. Scared animals, stressed animals, animals with treatable medical conditions, black animals, old animals, the list goes on. In addition to cats and dogs, many smalls such as rabbits, guinea pigs, hamsters, rats, mice, and birds are also regularly given death sentences. San Francisco shelters are not stepping up and fighting for those that they are charged with protecting. The current form of behavior evaluation is set up to ensure that animals fail, not pass. Medical issues that are easily addressed are not addressed. We continue to witness adoptable animals being put to death on a daily basis because of ACC's and the SPCA's failures.
Instead of looking for reasons to kill, we must look for reasons to save. Communities all around us, including just across the bay in Berkeley and the entire state of Delaware, are adopting no-kill policies and succeeding. Meanwhile, ACC and the SPCA adamantly refuse to support an official no-kill policy for San Francisco, citing the language as being divisive and, in the case of the SPCA, claiming that we are already doing it.
Tell that to the more than 2,600 cats and dogs that entered ACC in the past 3 years, only to be put to death in our city's so-called shelter. It is tragically clear that the status quo is not working. The Adoption Pact is consistently ignored as ACC's and the SPCA's leaders stand by day after day, year after year, and refuse to save the savable. Only legislation that can be legally enforced can guarantee our city's animals the chance for life that they deserve.
San Francisco has the potential to be #1 again in animal welfare, but it is up to all of us to make that happen, not next month or next year or 10 years from now, but now. Our companion animals cannot act on their own behalf. They depend on us to raise our voices and act for them, without hesitation and without further delay.
What do you want to say to the camera?